too that some people might say, oh, well, you guys are discounting, say, like etymology or something like that. We greatly try to place about with that in mind for lore. I mean, if we look at Nerthus and her etymological name being derivative of like the word earth, and Ersa or Hearth or Hertha, and we see this kind of growth of the name from sourcing from Nerthus from Tacitus's Germania, and then we see Jorth being the Nordic word for the earth, and we see that etymological connection, but there is a big step there immediately between Jorth and the precious one, Frigg, which the closest that we can gain, especially with all of the iterations of Frigg's name, whether it's Frico or Frijo or Fria or Free, which causes even more infinite confusion with Freya. That's a pretty big etymological jump. The other thing is not too far after, Snorri aside and the sagas aside and the prose Eddas, is that we do know that continental Germanic folk honored like Frico, and I'm referring to the Lombardic story in which she's clearly and cleanly mentioned. And that's during the migration period, which is even far closer to Tacitus's time. And that referencing, that correlation there's no connective tissue. She's seen very much as the individual goddess that we call Frigg. So I would argue that unless there's like perhaps maybe some more etymological evidence that bridges that big gap. And again, people do that. They will bridge that gap in any way they see it. And sometimes that can cause a lot of problems. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not a science project. It's something that we work towards. But when we honor them like correctively as we know them, in order to, again, if on the back end, secretly somebody says, Svan doesn't know what he's talking about because Frigg and Jorth are clearly the same. Well, I honor Jorth and I honor Frigg. I am not any at the loss of reverence. But if you choose to mash them together and put their names together and say their name is Fjord, at that point you're doing disservice to divinity. And that is where that causes more complications. There's a lot of complications on that mashing road.